All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group. Oh, geez, another boring day in the markets. Again, nothing really going on today. Snoozer. Of course, I'm joking around today. I mean, just huge moves once again. Looks like I have to update my spreadsheet, but I mean, look at where the markets finished for the day. Qs were down 4% for the day. Just some mind-blowing moves for the day, and then after hours a couple of these names back to where they opened, and some of them over the open and higher than that. We'll go through those names, but let's just talk about the price action just for a second. Qs down, we're down 4% for the day. Pretty remarkable too, because I was talking about how much the Qs have seen inflows over the last couple of days. I think it's $2 or $3 billion. And again, the ETF flows, sometimes they're a little bit delayed, like maybe a day, but just a lot of buying going on, and then just to see them down 4%, like after people, like you can imagine like what people are thinking if they're doing those types of things, to see the Qs down 4% today after all that buying that we've seen in some of the ETF flows, and of course in other places too. It's just remarkable, the volatility. So SPY finished down 2.3% too. That was kind of hanging in there for most of the day. It wasn't performing great, but then saw like a late day move. By the way, risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any recommendations or advice. Full risk disclaimer is here. And look at the disparity between growth and value today. Growth was down 3.8% for the day. Value was also down, but a little bit under 1%. The ARK funds, got hit hard, down again over 5%. The IBD 50 was that ETF is down 2.3% for the day. But I mean, look at the internet ETF. FD, that's Frank David Nancy, was down over 6%. So again, just kind of a little bit of shock and awe in terms of these numbers. The software ETF was down almost 4% as well. Blockchain stocks were down 3.5% for the day. The semis ETF was down over 4% for the day. So take a look at kind of where we are. Let's zoom out here for a minute. The thing that's kind of interesting to me is, my view kind of coming into today, and it's been this week, is just to kind of keep an open mind and be objective into the price action, because I was thinking that, hey, either we could come back and kind of retest this 200-day moving average and then see what happens in this area. Or I said the first thing to watch was the 5-period moving average, right? We talked about that on the downside. We talked about that the other day with price retaking that and was holding, has been holding this, and that's a pretty impressive, where this candle for the S&P futures. Again, it's going to look a little bit different for SPY, and I know people like to look at SPY but I like S&P futures because it's there's trading continuously, and the big institutions trade S&P futures, and I just view it as a little bit more better information than just looking at SPY, and it's the most liquid thing out there is S&P futures. But yeah, so we're back above the 5-day moving average is held, and the 20-day moving average, it looks like. So you could say for now, still, I think the 200-day moving average is very important, right, to make sure that price stays above. So that's the main thing that I'm concerned with, and then of course looking at these other moving averages and looking at the 50-day moving average. But for now, that's a higher. It looks like a higher low, right? And again, one day is not a trend. We'll kind of have to watch where that is. We talked about how this virgin point of control was a profit target to the upside. There wasn't really anything, I was wondering if we were going to slide all the way down to like 44.21 or 43.90. And I think if the market stayed open a couple more hours, you could have had that, the way that there was the selling pressure at the end of the day. But nevertheless, that's where we are. And in terms of virgin point of controls, there was 2 that were taken out today, one at 8:30 in the morning, and then the last one was taken out right around 3 o'clock. We got a little bit of a bounce, but just the selling pressure was too much. And sometimes you see this, not all the time, but sometimes you do see that the price goes a little bit lower than a virgin point of control takeout, and then you see a bounce above. Right, it gets even more dramatic when we look at what happened with the Qs today. Again, let's start with the daily chart, but same thing in terms of, one heck of a candle, right? And again, could be a higher low being put in. This was also a level that I was watching, this 14,355. And then also, I still think there's more work to be done. I think my stance is, and this is what I said in the midday video today for members, is that for the Qs and for higher growth areas of the market, I got to see the Qs get above the 200-day moving average, right? I got to see the whole group perform, that way. And it just sets up a little bit better. Tech, and reminder, there's no Facebook in the tech ETF. That's now in the XLC communications ETF. But you could see that this was down 2.9%. Some slight outperformance there. And also, you could see that there's this move, that stayed sustained over the 200-day moving average. So tech a little bit stronger than the overall Qs. Let's just look at SMH as well. It's a back check to the 200-day moving average. There's a couple names that reported after the close. Maybe I'm just thinking of one. Microchip, kind of hanging in there. Qualcomm will be a name to watch maybe tomorrow. Not a lot of volatility in Qualcomm. Good earnings. So in my opinion, well, let me get to this in just a second before I get ahead of myself. Let's look at IWM2, last one. It held in there. I was talking about IWM, I thought was shortable if it broke 198, right? You heard me say that a couple times today. That's actually above there. All right, so I'll get to let's talk about a couple of these names that reported earnings. What can you do besides kind of chuckle a little bit about this? Amazon did hold the bottom of value, 27.97, down 7.8% going into earnings and rocketing back up. I don't know what you're going to, what to do with this company, to be honest, that, thereafter. You got a lot of overhead supply. So 32.91, and I'm looking at the 1 hour chart, because you have so much overhead supply. So 32.91, and remember I said this in yesterday's video. Look at this. We're coming right into the top of value on the daily. Will this be able to kind of start to trend again, and not in a downward fashion? I don't know. We'll just kind of have to watch, but I would pay attention to that level that I just mentioned, 32.97, because it looks like we're rallying up to there. Someone did very well today with, we did see some really late day stuff. By the way, this stuff is very difficult to see, this type of price action. This thing sell off all day long, because even if you decided like, oh, the stock's down 3 or 4%, I'm going to take a shot on this. Were you really going to, did you really sit in that position for down another 4% for the day? I mean, this is not easy stuff to deal with, this intraday volatility. But I'll make a couple conclusions in just a minute. But yeah, we're up to 32.98, right? Which is right there. Oh, geez, that's funny. So that's Amazon. And then of course it gets even more kind of comical to see the move in Snap today, down 23%, just on the back, just pin action, straight up pin action, right? And now this is all the way up to 37. Amazing. So 37 on the daily chart, that's going to get you somewhere in here. I mean, just gets you back up here, still in a downtrend. It's remarkable. And then pins, right, which is another one, down 10%. Let's look at where this thing is trading. Now, this did take out VPOC here, all right? So I would maybe watch where the highs of the week. There's also that virgin point of control at 32.84. Again, let me just explain in case you're new to watching my videos, but virgin point of controls, they are very important, especially on earnings, right? Price likes to go back to where there was a high level of, or high area of where buyers and sellers have previously met up. but have not revisited. Okay, so whenever you see one of these red lines, right? So for Amazon, for example, that's where buyers and sellers met up previously, but it's kind of like a gap. People love to talk about gaps in charts. It's the same concept. So take, for instance, right, last week, right, we didn't even get inside this value area, let alone the point of control, right? So what this leaves behind is an area of high volume. And here's another one, right? The last 2 weeks, the price wasn't even in the value area. The 3 weeks ago it was, right? So based on this volume profile, right, here's the volume, right? So that's why this 3304 kind of comes into play, which is probably why it's stopping there, right? So a lot of volume from a couple periods ago. Again, this is the volume profile from right in here, right? So these people who were buying this in here are probably going to be sellers into this. That's the way you can kind of think about that, right? They've been trapped in this name, and who knows, maybe they bought a little bit lower, but certainly if their original cost basis was up here, right, that's why it's important, right? Once the price action returns to those high area of volume, it'll be sticky, right, which is what you see. All right, one other one, Unity Software, which reported earnings. You could watch 108. Top of value for the week is basically 108, shifting around here a little bit, and then there's a VPOC up here at 113. All right, so really interesting. So I'll tell you a couple of the observations and what I'm thinking in terms of how to play this high growth area right now, which is very difficult. I think until the trends start to improve, I think selling the rips right now, day trading, if you're a day trader, you have to be loving this price action because things are trending for the day. You go back to Snap, right, and you look at where this thing opened, right? I mean, that's a beautiful day. For day traders, you're just following this move throughout the session, right? Move down, weak, move back, and then just completely going from 27 down to 24. So, take this market for what it's giving you right now. As a reminder, we can't always get what we want in terms of, if your system is swing trading, it's not been the best market for swing trading for growth names. But if you could kind of flip that over from swing trading into day trading, you can go where there's alpha right now in this market, and that's swing trading and getting rid of positions and taking profits, and also being very neutral, right? Being able to follow to the downside as well as to the upside. That's what's working for this group of stocks. And yeah, I just saw someone tweet out, no one knows anything. I said this earlier in the room. Yeah, I agree. How can you, right? You could take some clues and things. Oh, I was going to mention that. Sorry, I'm all over the place too. There's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of moves to get your head around the last couple of days. But here's what they did for Amazon. Right, this was at 305. Somebody did come in and put on a June 3,545 call spread. What was also very interesting, right around that same time. Oh, let's see, when did this go up? Yeah, this went up at 130. Sorry, different time. But this was an interesting trade. Someone did put on a pretty sizable trade, $2 million. They came in at 3 o'clock, and these were the 2775 calls, just 180 contracts, but 180 contracts cost you a lot of money. They spent $120 for that, right, which is about $2.2 million in premium. Right, trading at 32.49. So that'll play for someone. Nicely played. And again, I'm just showing you this. I don't say, oh, I didn't line up a trade because of that. I just think some of these earnings trades are just too difficult. Because the options are so juiced right now, and they're wide. I think a couple of you guys were looking at the options right into the close, and they were ridiculously wide. So there's no free lunch, right? With call spreads help, but unless you know something, going outright long calls or puts more often than not are a losing endeavor. All right, so that's one takeaway is that I think that you can continue to kind of play some of these names. AMD was a nice little scalp trade using the value area. And then to further upon with the high growth names, I would say, really try to compile a watch list of names that had really good earnings. Just like we've seen in previous quarters, I think really that's going to be a place that if you are looking to swing trade a little bit, the Google, the Apple, the AMD, right, and probably about 3 or 4 other names, from tech that could be more a candidate for holding. All right, because I don't, I wouldn't necessarily say that everything is going to be value. I think that there's going to be pockets of growth that are going to possibly hold up and do okay in this market. So I haven't talked about any of the value stuff, but we'll start with AXP. That was a position that I took today. It didn't really do too much, but again, it just looks like these value type names or cheaper names. IBM was a name. I didn't trade this one because I don't really like this company that much. Again, you got to mix in your personal, you have to have conviction in your ideas, right? Sometimes if you're in a swing trade, you need to like the company a little bit too, or have high conviction in the idea. And IBM, I don't have high conviction in it. So I just kind of move on to the next one. That's another thing too. It's a point to kind of make here too, is that, you don't have to be able to get every name or company right. There's so many different names out there. If it's not making sense to you, or if it doesn't fit in your system, just move on to the next name, right? Procter and Gamble looks really good, right, for a possible breakout. It's been going sideways for a little bit after a big run. It had earnings, good earnings. So this is a name that I'm watching tomorrow. Again, boring stuff, but some of these names look pretty decent. J&J, I don't have a position in, but I'm watching. I think that's another interesting one. AbbVie did pretty well today. I took a couple targets in this. I've been stalking to get long in this name for a while. I just wanted to get earnings out of the way, so that worked. Here's my trades. So again, I'm trying to kind of pick spots in, like, the AMD was a very quick trade in that one. And then the energy names still look, decent. Crude, so where did crude finish for the day? Up 2%, right? And it did get above the value area for the week, right? It flirted with that yesterday and failed. But so I started a position in PXD today. Again, it didn't do much, but I like that it's above value, right? So here's when I go through my names that I'm looking at, I traded some CVX last week. Unfortunately, I didn't hold it. I bought the dip a little bit, but I didn't hold it last week. But if you look at CVX, it's got to get through resistance, right? So it may get hung up at 136. So I always go to a name that's kind of starts and has been consolidating above value, right? And that's why I chose PXD today over Chevron. But both charts look pretty good. I just would rather go with the one that has less resistance in front of it, right? And then it can kind of go from there. All right, guys, I think that's it. A few other names that I'm watching. BDX, I might add this one in the TTG trend portfolio. I just couldn't do it with today's volatility, but I like this. Look at the volume today. Well, again, it had earnings, so it should see more volume. But what I really like is just the trend in this, right? And again, it hasn't been a fast mover, but it's coming out of this coiling pattern. So I think it looks decent. What else do I have written down? I think Google will be interesting to watch, right? Here's what the weekly chart looks like. It did touch top of value, right? That's 30-30 is your breakout level, right? So kind of came in here, but perhaps it back and fills a little bit in here. Probably is trading up a little bit after hours. All right. I've also been using these SQQQ and TQQQ, right? Like I threw on last night SQQQ at like right after Facebook reported, and I took some profits. I took multiple targets in that. And then I got out of my last position after hours and I flipped into some TQQQ, and we'll see how that goes for a little bit of trade, because I'm really underexposed in the tech and growth area. All right, guys, that's it for today. Again, crazy moves to get your head around. And then tomorrow we've got a little thing called monthly jobs report. So should get interesting with tomorrow. Who knows? Maybe, these Fridays have been short covering rally days. So maybe we get another one of those days tomorrow. Who knows? Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.